Ivan Pavlenko, From Family to Family, Chapter 4, Part 2.1, Lychany, read by Natalia Abizova. The village of Lychany was located in the Alika zone. In general, the entire district could be divided according to natural conditions into two parts, a forest with the center in Sumy and a forest steppe with the center in Alika. Previously, the district center was Alika, an ancient town known since the 12th century. In 1564, the Lithuanian prince Radziwill built his ancestral castle in it with 366 halls and rooms, surrounded it with a stone wall, and installed 200 cannons for protection. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were sawmills and tanneries, a glue factory, 5 oil plants, 19 windmills, 116 private shops, and many different craftsmen. Until now, Alika is famous for its bazaar and regional psychiatric hospital, which is located in the former castle. There is a majestic church, 2 Orthodox churches, secondary and 8th grade schools, good shops, a brick factory, an industrial complex, and a hospital. The total population is 4,400 people, and at the beginning of the century, it was 5,860. In 1957, the district center was transferred from Alika to the unremarkable village of Sumy. This was achieved by those in power at the time, led by the head of the district executive committee, Filuk, who had led a partisan unit in the Sumy forests during the war. The main arguments came down to the fact that Sumy was the center of partisan glory and Alika was the area of activity of Bandera people. In addition, Sumy was in the center of the district and Alika was on its outskirts. Ideological arguments prevailed, and the district center was transferred from a town to a village. It's true, it was not for long. 5 years later, the district was expanded and the city of Kivertsi became the center. The village of Lychany was part of the Olika Settlement Council and was 6 miles away from it. In terms of the number of yards, it was about the same as Karpilivka, but there were significantly fewer residents, especially children, and there were no sectarians at all. There, the birth rate was somewhat restrained, and the people, both in clothes and in habits, were slightly different from those of Polisia. The main economic owner in the village was the collective farm Progress. The surrounding soils were black and loamy. Small forests were scattered here and there on the hills. The village had an 8th grade school, a club, a library, a first aid station, a shop, and also a church, which was closed since the wounded Bandera man had been found there. The school was wooden, covered with iron, built before the war as an elementary school. 130 students studied in it. Elementary classes were united, combined. There were 4 classrooms, so classes were in 2 shifts. There was no position of director of studies. His duties were performed by the principal and partly by a teacher on duty. Almost all teachers were young, but had families with higher and secondary special education. 3 of them were from Eastern regions, and the rest of them were local. All women. Only Grisha Shostak and physical education teacher Viktor Tsimbaluk were men. Anastasia Euchemivna Boyko, honored teacher of the Ukrainian SSR, of retirement age, had worked in a Polish school even before the war and at the same time was the regent of the church choir. She understood notes and played string instruments, gifted and comprehensively developed. At one time, she was a member of the Ukrainophile organization Prosvita. Unmarried, everything was devoted to the work she loved. For her, school was her native home and native family. All Lychany inhabitants passed through her pedagogical hands and respected her as a teacher and a person. Later, I also became convinced that there were a lot of such dedicated teachers in our pedagogical field. The school had a fruit-bearing garden and vegetable garden, in separate sections of which students conducted their experiments. In the foreground, there were rows of lilacs along the alleys, and in the middle, there were multicolored flower beds. Each of them was cared for by a certain class, and no one trampled on them or plucked them flowers. The most difficult thing for me was where to live and where to move my family to. The head of the district, Vlasenko, said there are 2 small rooms in the school that were planned for the teachers' accommodation, but they have labor lessons there. The previous principal started the construction of a separate workshop, but it was stopped due to lack of funds. You need to turn to the collective fund for help. Looking ahead, I will say that in 2 years, I did not manage to complete the workshop since money was not released from the district line and the collective farm had enough unfinished constructions. Therefore, it was necessary to look for a temporary or permanent apartment. The Veleshko family agreed to host us. They had a new house with 3 rooms. One of them had a separate entrance. I decided to settle down there for the winter, and there it would be seen whether we would find a better one or earn our own. We picked potatoes in Karpilivka and transported them to Lychany. For them, I dug a hole near the school similar to a cellar. I bought a wild boar weighing 1.5 centner at the bazaar for 140 karbovens in 90 kopecks per kilogram of live weight. So we provided ourselves with basic food for the winter. I said a warm goodbye to the Karpilivka teachers, as well as to the old woman Nastya, and moved the family to Lychany. Shura started tidying up the apartment, and I started planning work for the new academic year. I will not detail my entry into the educational process at the new place. What had happened in Karpilivka was repeated, only I already had more experience and self-confidence. In terms of professional level, the Lychany teaching staff was qualitatively higher and more capable of working than the Karpilivka teaching staff. In addition to Boyko, Anastasia Yukhimina, whom I have already mentioned, the real masters of the pedagogical business were such teachers as Vera Vasilyevna Vasilevska, Nina Grigorьевна Kuchma, Natalia Yakimovna Chichotka, and Evgenia Yosipevna Bulakevich. All of them had a higher education, were young, full of energy, and desire to show themselves from the best side. In Karpilivka, I was involving teachers in creative work, and here they themselves showed initiative and brought something new and original to the educational process. I supported and developed those qualities of my colleagues in every possible way. At the meetings, we analyzed the educational plans of the class teachers, singled out successful educational measures, and conducted an open review of them. We organized contests for the best wall newspaper and classroom corner, for the best flower bed and student drawing. Winners were determined in artistic amateur activities and in sport competitions. And everything came from the teachers themselves and was not imposed by me. I will remember some of them. Vera Vasilyevna Vasilevska was a teacher of the Ukrainian language and literature. She was comprehensively developed with a broad outlook and a high level of culture, friendly and polite in relationship with students and workmates. She led a political group in the collective farm party organization and was accepted as a member of the CPSU, and 3 years later was appointed the principal of the Zalisoche 8th grade school. Nina Grigorьevna Kuchma was a foreign language teacher. At some time, she was a senior pioneer leader in the Suman Secondary School and a member of the Bureau of the Komsomol District Committee. She was relentlessly active, especially in educational work. After I had moved to Trstenet, she was appointed school principal and accepted as a member of the CPSU. Later, she worked as an instructor of the Lutsk district committee of the party. Natalia Yakivna Chechotka was a biology and chemistry teacher, modest and hardworking. She loved flowers. Together with Anastasia Euphemyevna Boyko, she grew the best school flower gardens in the district, for which she was awarded a district certificate. Evgenia Yosipivna Bulakevich was a mathematics teacher, infinitely in love with her subject. She worked a lot with gifted students who became winners of district Olympiads. It was pleasant and interesting to work with such teachers. Vera Vasilyevna Vasilevska is among the choir members of Lychany 8th grade school. Here also you can see Ivan Pavlenko's sons, Volodymyr Pavlenko and Grigory Pavlenko. Ivan Pavlenko, the principal of Lychany 8th grade school. I taught history, and the Russian language and literature was taught by Tatiana Ivanivna, the wife of the head of the collective farm Novosad. As the principal of such a small staff school, I received 130 karbovantsov per month. Working as the principal was more difficult for me than working as the director of studies in Karpilivka, and not because I performed the duties of both the principal and the director of studies. The fact that you work a lot is not difficult if the work goes well and you like it. After all, you see the results of your efforts and receive a moral boost pleasure. The position of a principal is difficult in the sense that not everything depends on you. Sometimes you do nothing but your head hurts. You are pressured by your duties and your superiors, and you cannot solve this or that issue. To deliver, for example, fuel for the school and teachers, money and transport are needed. It would seem that there is something simple. The district transfers the money to the convoy, and the convoy allocates a lorry for the transportation of firewood. Get in the lorry and take 2 technicians in it and go to the treasured forest for your firewood. But we are not Germans, with whom everything is punctual and precise. Our bureaucratic system is such that every official looks into your pocket to see if he can at least steal something for the kids' milk, or at least shows off his power over you. First, you will go to the accounting office until the money is found there for you. And then you will go on a trip to the motorcade to get a lorry, so that it will be given on a fine day and not in rainy weather, when dirt roads will be difficult to move along. Finally, everything is arranged and you go to the forest. And there, the forester does not offer birch or hornbeam trees, for which you have paid money, but pine stumps from branches instead. There will only be a lot of smoke from there, but not heat, no heat. A kind of game begins. You ask, persuade, and he explains something, spreads his hands, and looks impassively somewhere past your ears until you guess that you need to give a bribe, or at least a bottle of alcohol. And what about repairing the school? Money can be transferred to the store only for floor paint. Everything else, boards, nails, glass, should be taken only at the central base in Lutsk region. Again, there are calculations and searches for transport. You will arrive at the base, but there is just no what you need. You go a second or third time there if the collective farm provides a lorry, and if not, then you sit and scratch the back of your head or take pills for a headache. So you make a horse move. You transfer money to a local store for paint, but you take glass, brooms, and nails. And this is already a violation of financial discipline, which can turn against you with negative consequences up to being fired. Where everything is shared, everything is ours, and at the same time nobody's, everyone is trying to grab something by deceiving his neighbor, to make a living at his expense. Because if you don't deceive, then you will be deceived. And from here sprout such vile qualities as extortion and bribery, hypocrisy and sycophancy, adventurism and fraud, secrecy and mutual distrust.